The rain poured steadily, painting the city streets in a blur of glistening reflections. Daniel, a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and a loosened tie, sat slouched on the cold bench at the bus stop. The workday had drained him, like most days did lately, just another evening of silence and gray thoughts. As he rubbed his temple, the squish of small, hesitant footsteps caught his attention. Turning his head, he saw a little girl standing a few feet away. Her thin coat was soaked through, clinging to her small frame. Water dripped from her tangled hair, and in her arms, she clutched a threadbare teddy bear that had clearly been loved far beyond its years. Her big brown eyes, red and puffy, locked onto his, filled with something too heavy for a child to carry. He straightened slightly, unsure what to say. But she beat him to it. "Please marry my mother, mister," she said, her voice fragile and shaking. "She's all I've got left." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. Time seemed to stop. For a moment, the sound of rain faded, replaced by the quiet heartbreak in her voice. He blinked, trying to process if he'd heard her right. But there was no mistaking it, the desperation in her eyes, the quiet plea from a child who had clearly lost more than she ever should have. Daniel's heart stirred in a way it hadn't in years. Something was about to change. Daniel couldn't shake the little girl's words from his mind. The next morning, despite having other plans, he found himself walking into a small corner diner he often passed but never entered. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside, the warmth and smell of coffee offering a strange comfort. Behind the counter stood a woman, early 30s, hair tied back in a messy bun, her uniform wrinkled from long hours. She moved quickly between tables, balancing trays and fake smiles. It was her, the mother. Daniel recognized her instantly from the girl's features. The resemblance was clear in the eyes. She was beautiful, in a quiet, worn-down kind of way. There was a sadness behind her smile, one that matched the girl's voice from last night. "Coffee?" she asked, stopping at his table with a notepad. He nodded. "Yes, please." "Black." Their eyes met for a second longer than necessary. She hesitated, perhaps sensing something familiar about him, but then hurried off. As he watched her, Daniel overheard a coworker whisper that she was recently widowed. Husband passed away last winter. Car accident. She's been working double shifts ever since. Daniel sat back, the pieces falling into place. This wasn't just a tired woman. She was a grieving mother trying to hold everything together for her daughter. The same daughter who, with a soaked teddy bear and tear-streaked face, had begged a stranger to help fix what life had shattered. And suddenly, Daniel knew, he wasn't there by accident. Over the next few weeks, Daniel found himself returning to the diner more often. At first out of curiosity, then out of something deeper he couldn't quite name. Each visit, he made small conversation with Emily, the girl's mother. She was guarded but polite, always thanking him with a tired smile. Lily, the little girl, would sometimes peek shyly from the corner booth, her teddy bear always by her side. One rainy evening, as Daniel was about to leave, he noticed Emily struggling to carry 2 heavy boxes to her car with Lily walking behind her, trying her best to help. Without thinking, Daniel rushed over. "Let me get those," he said. She hesitated, then nodded quietly. That night, he offered them a ride home. Their apartment was modest, clean but clearly stretched thin by circumstance. Lily excitedly invited him in for hot cocoa. Emily looked surprised but didn't refuse. Inside, something shifted. Laughter returned to Lily's voice, and Emily's posture softened as she watched her daughter come alive in a way she hadn't in months. Daniel stayed longer than he intended. They talked about simple things, books, favorite meals, memories. It wasn't dramatic or romantic. It was honest, gentle, real. From that night on, Daniel became a quiet presence in their lives. Helping with groceries. Fixing a leaky faucet. Playing board games with Lily. And with every shared meal, every kind word, the unspoken walls around all three of their hearts began to quietly fall. One afternoon, weeks after that first rainy night, Daniel stopped by the diner with a small wrapped gift, nothing fancy, just a second-hand storybook he thought Lily might like. He wasn't sure why he brought it. Maybe because he remembered how her eyes lit up when she talked about fairy tales. When Emily saw the book, her expression shifted, grateful, but also conflicted. "You don't have to keep doing things for us," she said softly as they stood near the coffee machine, away from the customers. Daniel looked at her for a moment, then said, "I know. I just like being around you both." That evening, he dropped by their apartment again. This time, Lily ran to him with open arms, tugging him inside with a bright smile. They spent the evening playing cards and reading together, laughter echoing off the once quiet walls. As the night wore on, Emily sat beside him on the worn couch, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. "I don't usually let people in," she admitted, her voice low. "Especially not after losing Josh. Lily, she's all I've got." Daniel nodded, not speaking, just listening. Then Lily, curled up on the rug with her teddy, looked up and said, "You laugh like Daddy used to. It makes Mommy smile." The room went still. Emily looked away, blinking back tears. It wasn't a grand moment. But in that simple, childlike observation, something deep stirred in Daniel. It was the beginning of something neither of them had dared hope for, healing. One quiet Sunday evening, as the sky turned shades of amber and rose, Daniel found himself sitting alone with Lily on the front steps of their apartment. Emily was inside finishing dinner, and the air carried the comforting smell of something baking. Lily sat cross-legged beside him, humming softly and stroking her teddy bear's worn fur. Daniel glanced at her, curious. "Can I ask you something?" he said gently. "Why did you ask me to marry your mom that night?" Lily didn't answer right away. She looked down, picking at a loose thread on her bear. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "I heard Mommy crying. A lot. When she thinks I'm asleep." Daniel's chest tightened. "She tries to be strong. But I know she misses Daddy." Lily paused. I thought if someone was kind to her, like you were, maybe she wouldn't feel so alone anymore. Maybe you'd stay." Daniel swallowed hard. He hadn't expected the answer to come with so much weight. Lily looked up, her voice even softer. "And I miss having someone to tuck me in, someone who looks at us like we matter." Tears welled in Daniel's eyes, catching him off guard. He'd spent years building walls around his heart after his own losses. But this little girl, without knowing it, had torn right through them with honesty and hope. That night, he didn't just stay for dinner. He stayed to help set the table, and something deeper settled into place, belonging. Spring arrived gently, wrapping the city in soft light and new beginnings. The world felt a little warmer, a little brighter. Daniel stood in the small park near their apartment, nervously fidgeting with something in his coat pocket. Nearby, Emily laughed as she helped Lily fly a paper kite, her hair blowing in the breeze, her face glowing in a way Daniel hadn't seen before. When Lily ran off chasing the kite string, Daniel turned to Emily. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with purpose. "I've been thinking about something," he began, voice steady but sincere. Emily looked at him, curious. "That night at the bus stop. Lily asked me to marry you. But now, I'm asking. Will you let me?" Emily's eyes widened, her breath catching. There was no ring, no crowd, just the two of them, standing in the sun, with a little girl's laughter floating on the wind. Tears filled her eyes. She didn't need to say much. She stepped forward, nodding, wrapping her arms around him in a quiet yes. Lily, seeing them from a distance, dropped her kite and sprinted toward them, shouting, "Did you say yes?" Emily smiled through her tears. "Yes, baby. I did." Lily squealed with joy, hugging them both as tightly as her little arms could. In that moment, it didn't feel like a fairy tale. It felt better, real, raw, and full of healing. Because sometimes, love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a second chance, and a child's simple wish.